And joining us right now to talk about this, distinguished professor for Touro University, Dan Rosenbaum, and host of America Right Now, Tom Basile. Tom, more investigations. Is there a possibility here that some are saying that maybe people are getting a little tired of this? Or do they simply need a little more data, a little more evidence to go forward and have public support in a possible impeachment?
Look, I think that an impeachment inquiry could be appropriate, but I really think that what the Republicans have been doing so far is the smarter play, which is continue to gather evidence from the State Department, from Treasury, from the bank records, from the IRS, from the whistleblowers, and then lay out for the public a case that, if you brought it before a grand jury, would result in an indictment, and then demand that a federal prosecutor be appointed to look into this case. I'm very, very skeptical of just this becoming perceived as another sort of show trial in the Congress, and a lot of folks just turn that stuff off.
Thane, do you agree with Mr. Basile's assessment?
I never disagree with Tom.
I find that's a good policy. That's a good policy.
Not when I'm on with my other buddies, Nina and Bob.
Right.
This is what I would say. First of all, let's remember Donald Trump did not receive an impeachment inquiry. They went straight to a House floor, and then they went to the Judiciary Committee. So they did not slow things down when it came to Donald Trump. So one area is, well, they're doing this procedurally in a correct manner. But secondly, you know why? Because they smell blood in the water. Remember, none of us know what high crimes and misdemeanors are. We don't know. We still don't know, right? We had 2 impeachment trials. We keep hearing it. We don't know what it is. It's a very amorphous idea. But bribery, everyone knows what that is. And so therefore, if you slow things down and you establish more of a nexus between ill-gotten gains that somehow found their way into a Biden bank account, when it comes to impeachment, those are the 2 areas: treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors. In this case, it's much more simpler. It's just bribery. They have a much stronger case if it's limited to something that everyone understands as concrete.
Yeah. Turning to Georgia, where former President Trump turned himself in yesterday. Also, Mark Meadows, Mr. Trump's former chief of staff, turning himself in on Monday. U.S. District Judge Steve Jones will hold a hearing on whether or not Meadows can move his case to federal court. Meadows argues, since he was a federal employee at the time, that his case should be moved. Now, as I understand it, Thane, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would have the possibility of a different judge. It would be a federal judge. It would be a different jury pool, however, like a 10-county area, which would give him more of a possibility of what some would consider a fair jury. But you'd still have the state laws for RICO and still have the same DA, Fani Willis. Yeah. Am I right on that?
You know, I'm not sure procedurally how much of that. I think that the argument still is, once you move it to federal court, you could take the argument, just like we have now a federal judge, we need a federal prosecutor. But the basic principle that you're raising is correct, which is, if I'm acting within the scope of my employment as a federal employee and I'm being prosecuted for crimes committed as a federal employee, right, I need to be in federal court. Mm-hmm. So regardless, the point that you're making is the key point, which is the jury pool will be much more favorable. And also, the predisposition that I was acting within the scope of not only my duties, but within my constitutional authority as the chief of staff to make sure that, forget the fact that my president was running for re-election. As the president of the United States, Donald Trump has an obligation, commander-in-chief, to make sure that all elections are fair. And so it's not surprising that you're saying, well, you were there not in your capacity as a federal employee, but as a sort of campaign chairman, manager for Trump. That's not necessarily true. I would say, if I'm chief of staff, when I'm on a bicycle, I'm the chief of staff. I'm doing the bidding of the president as commander-in-chief, and he had a legitimate reason to check on the status and the legitimacy of these election results.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, I see you nodding over here. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. You are what you are. When you are a senior White House official, if you're an elected official, you are acting on behalf of the people of this country. And it doesn't matter in what conversation. You always are that. You know, what I find so fascinating about this is that we were just talking about the Biden corruption scandal. One of the reasons why you can't have an attorney general or a local prosecutor bring bribery charges against the president is because he was acting as vice president in a federal capacity at the time. So we're seeing this division is a real thing, and therefore, you know, the judge really should rule in favor of Meadows. I'm not sure if that'll happen, but when it comes to Meadows, when it comes to Trump and some of these other defendants, it probably should be moved to federal court.
Tom, let me ask you this. Is there a possibility of different verdicts for the different people? I mean, there are 19
absolutely.
people. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that you could very easily see here, Bob, is these co-defendants kind of playing off of each other. They're going to need to coordinate on strategy, but at the same time, everybody's
in it for themselves.
Everybody has a duty to get their own defendant off, to get their own client off, and so you could see some of these folks actually working against each other, including the president, because he got the advice from these individuals upon which he was making these decisions.
And then Mark Meadows might say, well, I was doing what my boss told me to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To Tom and Bob's point, Thane, I mean, could this actually backfire for former President Trump?
What is that, Nina? That they would be in federal court?
Yeah, that everyone would sort of gang up against him,
I see.
essentially.
No, let me tell you, Katrina, here's what I think about that. They brought a RICO charge, which means you've got 19 people, a lot of moving parts. They alleged 160 criminal acts. This is a monster of a storyline that they've constructed. So let them all fight it against each other. If in fact this is a conspiracy, they should all be in it together. If they're fighting each other, it suggests that they were not a coordinated effort here, that this was not a common goal, that they had very different objectives because they simply recognized in one thing they believed is that the election had been stolen, that their man had won. But they weren't acting in concert. They didn't have a meeting. They weren't following orders to commit crimes. They were following orders to pursue the truth. So in a way, it doesn't matter that they pursue different legal strategies or different arguments. It's basically saying, are they indispensable to each other? And the more they separate, the more they look less like a criminal enterprise.
And the more that it's honestly then protected by the First Amendment.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Great insights. Tom Basile, Thane Rosenbaum, thank you.